5, 6, 7, 8.
Hello, EXers. Welcome to the EX Podcast episode number 12. This is your host, Stéphane Vincent. I've started this podcast because I believe that companies have to think of themselves as employment brands if they hope to attract and retain talent. This podcast brings a different lens to the employee experience, a brand and customer experience angle rather than a traditional HR angle. Our guests, all thought leaders and disruptors in the EX space in their own way, come to this show to debate, discuss, and share best practices on the key components that foster employee engagement and strengthen company culture, and also to spark the conversation on how to create positive employee experiences. Now, let's be real. Employee disengagement is a big issue. Only 30% of employees worldwide feel engaged at work, and 20% declare they just don't give a crap about their work. The other 50% are in the twilight zone of engagement, not fully engaged, not completely switched off either. There's not much companies can do with the 20% paycheck suckers who just show up at work because they have to in order to collect their dues. Instead, companies should focus on the 50% of employees semi-engaged. That's where companies can make a difference and impact their bottom line. Here, our guests share with you how we can make it happen together. Today's guest is Donna Szarwark, Senior Vice President of Human Resources at FRCH. FRCH is an international brand experience firm of 250 employees headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. As a very successful creative agency, FRCH thrives on building an inclusive and highly collaborative culture where employees feel empowered to bring ideas to life. Today with Donna, we will talk about how individuals, whether customers or employees, are at the center of the experience, how business and employer brands are intimately intertwined with some nuances. What are some successful EX initiatives that FRCH has put in place? And the fact that talent acquisition is as much a competition as it is a partnership. This episode is brought to you by Fusion Alliance. Fusion Alliance delivers holistic solutions fusing together data, digital, and technology to redefine customer experiences and move your ideas to execution. That's why businesses across multiple industries have relied on Fusion's expertise and partnership for over 25 years. For more information, visit www.fusionalliance.com. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you get a chance, please make sure to review the podcast on iTunes. You can open the iTunes app and type in Stéphane Vincent or EX Podcast and you will find us there. And last thing, if you want to send me feedback, suggestions for future topics or guests, you can reach me at svincent@exsummit.com or on Twitter at ex_summit. All right, let's get to it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the EX Podcast. Very excited for today's guest, Donna Szarwark, a Senior Vice President of Human Resources at FRCH. FRCH is an international brand experience firm of about 250 employees, headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. Donna, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell us a bit more about FRCH and what your role is in the organization.
Sure. We are an architecture and design firm, especially in strategic retail, mixed use, hospitality, restaurants, and commercial solutions. So basically, we're creating fresh branded environments. And we have nearly 50 years of expertise, have about 3,000 projects that we've done this year in the United States and in Canada, and work across about 23 countries. And my role is basically to lead the human resource team, and I'm also a principal in the firm.
Good. What piqued my interest to do this episode with our FRCH is that your firm innovates and inspires to create amazing environments where people shop, eat, work, relax, and play. The EX podcast is all about bringing a brand and customer experience angle to the company culture and employee engagements versus a traditional HR angle. At a high level, how do you see CX and EX intertwine?
Basically, experiences are just a catalyst for human connection. And so I don't see too much difference in a customer and the employee brand experience. They both take into consideration multiple touch points and experience, and that could be both positive or negative. In our case, we try to put the customer or the guest or our employees at the center of everything that we do. In our business, the experience touch points, like for the customer, is the physical space, like you mentioned, where they shop or work, play, dine, or where they stay. So we can engage the senses by impacting everything in the design, from structure to color materials to fixtures, furniture, lighting, or even things like their logo or wayfinding that can impact the experience of our clients' customers. But with the employees, obviously we can also impact our physical space, but the real core of every business are individuals and that represent you collectively and impact the brand. So it's really an inside-out process. So it's more than the space that we work in. It's kind of the craft of creating these positive employee experiences. These touch points kind of start from your career site or your descriptions or social media, like every interaction from the first phone call to the interview, the first day on the job, onboarding, all those things, benefits, training, even career development and employee involvement. All those interactions impact how an employee feels about the firm. So they kind of need to be brand-worthy experiences. We're really proud of, we want employees to be proud of where they work and share that passion of the clients that we serve to be part of something bigger. You hope that they're going to recommend their friends and families to work here.
It's a good point. And there's a natural connection between physical space design and design thinking, because design thinking puts the individual or the human at the center of everything. And I know that you guys apply design thinking in your work. And you mentioned also the touch points that are very important. What is the process to identify touch points, whether it's on the customer side or on the employee side, that FRCH uses and applies to its projects?
The separate touch points, the process is very similar, that you kind of go through a customer journey or an employee journey. So you try to think about each touch point along that path and how individuals interact. So, there's several steps in that process. And for us, we just kind of mapped from the time somebody is hired until the time that they retire and try to look at all the ways that we interact together.
So at a high level, what would be, in your opinion, the major touch points from an employee perspective?
I think initially it's their first interaction with the firm is one of the biggest touch points. And again, from the time you start the process, their interaction, even online, and how they apply, that can turn somebody off if it's not a positive experience. But certainly when they come in for an interview, how that process works, how quickly you make decisions, it goes into the process. The very first day on the job is a very important touch point. And we try to do a lot of things to help people feel welcome and, give them lots of FRCH swag and things to make them feel, part of our family. And then each interaction afterwards, how they're onboarded, how they're introduced to the teams, all those things are important, but it just continues. After 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you have to talk to the employees about how they fit into the larger picture and help them connect. We assign them mentors, and we just continue that process through their evaluation process, how they develop their career paths, how they get through their training and development. Those are all critical touch points. And it just kind of continues with really everyday experiences.
Yeah, and we, on a previous episode with Jed Banner from Smallbox, we talked about those different touch points. And at Smallbox, they even actually they do a graduation party when employees leave the company for a new opportunity or a new adventure. One touch point that is often overlooked by companies is what we typically call the exit interview. What's your take on this? Does the relationship really end when an individual leaves the company, or should it continue?
I feel like relationships need to be thought about as long term, and that applies to both your experiences with your customers or with employees, mm-hmm. because I think a lot of times people think of those transactions as short term.
Yes.
But you really have to build connections and relationships at a much longer term, the longer term thinking. And for us, we do exit interviews, but we don't even wait for employees to leave. We do a version of exit interviews while they're employed and try to, get their feedback. We get employee opinion surveys and do things to try to get feedback all the time to see where they are, because, there is at some point you are going to have some employees sort of, like you said, graduate out of employment for you, and you have to wish them well. And I do think we celebrate that as well. They may end up going to work for a client. It could be a competitor. You don't know what the situation is, but you definitely want to continue to keep those relationships because you're known by your alumni.
Uh-huh. It's a very interesting point as well. I've written a manifesto on what I call B2E, or business to employee branding, and I actually mentioned the alumni aspect of the employee touch points, because you never know what's going to happen, whether an employee may have the opportunity to come back to the company, or even just referrals are very important as well in the recruiting process. So the way you end a relationship may have an impact on what will happen in the future.
I completely agree. And that's really important to us to continue with those relationships. In fact, we're in the process of planning a pretty big event because we're getting close to our 50th anniversary, and we're going to invite all of our alumni back to the organization to celebrate with us.
Very nice. Very, very nice. When is it?
Actually, it's next year. It's next fall. So the process is starting now to because you have close to 50 years of employment. That's a lot of people to track down.
That's a lot of planning involved. So early in the conversation, you mentioned that there's not much difference between the customer or the employee experience, because after all, the individual or the human is at the center of the initiative of the exercise. So do you see differences between a business brand and an employer brand, or is it really the same?
I think the business brand and the employer brand are very similar. I don't know if they're exactly the same. We basically have our brand kind of consists of our brand values, which in our case, they were developed as being creative and curious and collaborative, committed and caring. That's what we decided or determined were our brand values. And HR and our leadership team, we try to take those values and then map them to our employer brand so that we know that we're touching on all those topics. and making those brands come to life through it could be events that we do, it could be how we partner on projects and teams, just basically all of our interactions. We try to continue to think through those brand topics, and even our interview questions are based on those brand values. The evaluation process that somebody goes through, or for someone to be promoted, we take all that in consideration.
You mentioned that the core values are very important to the employer brands. What would be, I assume that it's one of those critical components of an employer brand. What would be 2 or 3 other critical components of an employer brand, in your opinion?
Well, I think about, the different components of a brand. I guess at first I think it's critical to get input from everyone to define what makes you unique first.
Yes.
You've got to know your corporate soul. The leaders can help with that, developing a vision, a mission, and those brand values that I talked about. And then you have to engage them across all those touch points. It's that employee journey, just like a customer journey. So, that means charting that journey, like I mentioned before, from hire to retire, and really being an employee-centric firm. It's not just about engaging the culture. It's about improving the experience as a whole through all stages and phases of life. And we try to look at it in our wellness programs and how we train, digital experiences. We want them all to be positive. And it's just we look beyond a building or a hotel or a retail store or a restaurant to focus on the customer or that great experience. We use that same design thinking in the space, and we have programs for multiple generations to help with work-life demands and aligning personal goals with the corporate values, getting collaboration, and that type of thing.
That's interesting. One big question I ask typically when people ask me what I think about the employee experience, or when I speak at some of our EX Summit events as well, is I don't understand why some companies are very good at developing a customer experience, from, as you mentioned, the customer journey mapping to the customer segmentation, to using different communication channels to engage with different demographics. But companies have a hard time, or don't even think of applying those same principles to the employee experience. You mentioned that you have different programs for different groups of individuals. A lot of companies have just one main benefit package for everyone, right? But if you are in your 30s, you may have different aspirations or different needs than if you are in your 50s or 60s. So could you give us some examples of how you treat employee groups differently?
Well, most of our benefits packages are fairly similar, but it's true that what's important to someone in their 20s may be very different than someone in their 50s. And I think a lot of times for us, we've been very focused on individuals' ability to be flexible and kind of own their schedule. I think that's something that we found that's important at all ages. So for some folks that are younger, they really enjoy having time off, and we work that into our schedules. I mentioned we have a lot of events, and we shut down the office for a week during the holidays. We have a lot of things that take you off site, but you also have a lot of control of your schedule. As long as the work gets done,
right,
we allow people to come and go, and it's pretty fluid. And you kind of need to be that way in a creative environment to really to get the best out of people. They have to stay energized. But it's the same applies. There are different phases of life. I can think of some individuals right now who have those same needs because they're helping take care of their parents, or they're dealing with other things in their life. And there's something about trusting people and being transparent in that area that I think makes a huge difference. But the benefits probably really vary, and we try to offer just a lot of variety of benefits so that you can appeal to, what the needs are, and we ask them. I mean, we do a lot of surveying, probably far more than most firms. We probably do 6 to 8 surveys a year to try to get feedback, to benchmark kind of how we're doing. I think it's important that you monitor and measure either through opinion surveys or through a brand audit to see where you are, because it can change.
Yes, and that's actually it's a big number, 6 to 8. Typically, companies do maybe 1, maybe 2, not more than this. But you can really take the pulse of the employees if you do this only once a year. As you said, the level of engagement, the level of motivation varies from one quarter to another for whatever reasons. So it's nice to be able to measure the level of engagement on a regular basis. You mentioned as well a bit earlier wellness programs. That's a trend, right, in company culture and employee engagement. What kind of wellness programs do you guys have at FRCH?
Well, we actually started wellness probably far before it became popular. We've had a committee for almost 15 years now.
Wow.
And it's just because to me, it's common sense. It's really about well-being. It's holistically thinking about an individual. And, we started out just focusing on a few areas where it might be more physical, exercise and nutrition types of areas, and trying to have a healthy food market versus vending machines in the office, or, organizing events where we can do walkathons and things to encourage people. And over time, it's, evolved into much more. We now connect the benefits. We have a program. It's called, it's a program that's online. Basically, you have an app and you record all of your activity that you do. From everything, if you use a health coach, or you're drinking enough water, or you're getting exercise, it gets into quite a few different areas, and you score points, and basically you can get gift cards and things. So there's an incentive attached to try to stay well. We do things like have a treadmill desks and bike desks and standing desks and things like that to help people. Because, you're sitting for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And just, each year we try to introduce something new and try to keep it fresh and keep people engaged. And we also have tied it even to insurance premiums. So we reward people by reducing their premiums and their contribution if they participate in these programs. But we really get a very high level of participation. So we're very happy about that, and I really think it does impact your bottom line. I mean, it's good business sense, but it just really makes sense, to share this information and help people to stay healthy.
For those who may question the cost of implementing this type of programs, is it expensive? You mentioned the ROI. That is maybe not always easy to measure right away, at least. But is it expensive to implement those types of programs?
Well, there's so many programs that don't cost any money at all. But I mean, if you start to buy things to reward people, or if you invest money into like sending people to the doctor and having physicals and doing blood draws, and we do health fairs twice a year here. Those things can cost money, but we've become very clever about how we do that, and we negotiate it into our benefits plans with our carriers. So basically, they're paying the cost of these programs, and that's kind of how we've managed to keep the costs down. During the downturn, there was basically no money for programs like that. So what I did was contacted some of our competitors and even our broker in the area, and we formed a committee of about 6 companies to share resources so that we could continue to offer lunch and learns and add value from a wellness standpoint and educate the whole group. We basically put on a health fair in Cincinnati downtown, and just try to get everybody involved. And that was one way to share costs.
That's very interesting. And you mentioned that you even actually partnered with some of your competitors. What's striking to me is that the design and creative industry in Cincinnati is obviously very competitive, but also it's a tight community, right? It's very interesting to hear that in order to serve your employees, you partnered with some of your competitors to be able to lower some of the costs to be able to keep providing those benefits.
Yes, it really does make sense. I mean, I would say we're friendly competitors. I just think it's so important as an industry to share best practices. I mean, that's how the whole industry elevates. So, that's something that we feel very strongly about.
Do you feel that I could imagine that some people may argue, oh yeah, FRCH is a creative agency, they can do all the fun stuff, all the creative stuff, but for companies working in the banking industry or in the pharmaceutical industry, more conservative industries, they may think, well, I don't know if we can do that. Do you think that it is specific to a type of industry, or can those initiatives apply to any industry?
I truly believe it can apply to any industry. And, I was very fortunate in my career. My first job out of school, I was working for the Marriott Corporation, and it was in a location that was a startup. So I got the chance to meet Bill Marriott, and he was one of the individuals that he asked me the question. He goes, if you want to be in human resources, I'm going to ask you an interview question, like what's more important, the employee or the guest, your client? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'm going to answer the employee because that's what I feel. And he said, you're one of the first people that's answered that question correctly. And that you have to think about the employee. If you take care of them, they'll take care of the guest. And then later on in my career, I worked in the food industry, and I had a chance to meet Sam Walton, and he had the same philosophy. He spent so much time getting to know his employees. When he would travel, he would take photos of all the employees, and he had statistics on the back of each photo and would memorize their family names and everything about them. So when he went to a new location, he could have conversations with people. And he said employees are the most important asset. And the industry that I came from was the food manufacturing industry. And we really, focused on the employees. And in the 10 years that I was there, that industry probably ran around 66% turnover would be average. And we were able to get that to closer to 5% turnover because it was all about taking care of the employees first. And we ran 7 days a week, 3 shifts. So I know it can apply to different industries. You just have to have that passion around it.
Yeah, it's not just for the service industry, because in whatever industry, there are always employees that are customer facing, right? If you're in accounting, typically you don't talk to customers. You may talk to some of your suppliers, providers, you may actually end up talking to some of your customers if you're in if you're doing invoices. But there are always a few customer facing positions, no matter what, whether it's on the sales side, customer support side, at the reception desk, whatever it might be. And some companies just overlook the importance of employee satisfaction, motivation, and how this impacts even just the outside perception of the company itself.
I agree.
Now, let's talk about some of the corporate design projects that FRCH has done and how your team brought that brand experience to the workplace. Do you have some stories or some examples you could share with us?
There's a lot of different trends that have happened, and we definitely think about design as really it's about brand. And, it's not just about consumer products. It's about that consumer lifestyle that the products complement. So, it's an emotional tie with the brand that keeps everything fresh and relevant. And inspiration comes from all these unexpected places. So in a space, you have to think about a mix of an area that's quiet and an area that's loud, where it's dark and where it's light, where it's serious and where it's playful in the spaces. And so all these touch points get to be expressed individually and, with personality. And the thing that I think about, that jumps out to me, a project that we did, and we've worked on this project for a while. We did the original American Girl flagship store, if you're familiar with the American Girl doll.
Yes.
And for a long time, that doll, it was just about picking out a doll, buying the accessories that go with it. Mm-hmm. But we created an experience that people will come for miles to go. And it's not just about picking the doll. You still do that, but you get to pick out the accessories. You even, pick out the hairstyle, and you take it to a spa, and then you go to like a boutique restaurant with your doll, and you have cupcakes and teas, and they have birthday experiences. And people don't just go and shop for a short period of time. They spend 3 to 4 hours mm-hmm. with their child having this branded experience. And that to me is one of the best examples of where you can connect those dots.
It is, yeah. Actually, I've taken my daughter a couple of times to Chicago at the store. It's an amazing experience. I would agree with that. What I've got to ask you, because we're talking about design, space design. What does the FRCH office look like?
We're very eclectic. It's a very fun, vibrant environment. A lot of color, beautiful artwork, but like a lot of the furniture in the lobby don't match. It's got a very interesting energy. We've got videos that are playing with mostly employee events and different things that are taking place. Sometimes we have client activity, and at least every month we have a pegboard. Sometimes it has employee photos on the board, but we change it out with different displays depending on what we're celebrating, because we do a lot of celebrating in the office. But we have the floor is open. A couple of floors, our 7th and 6th floor, are all wide open and have natural sunlight. It's really a beautiful space.
How do you manage? We've gone from closed offices to cubicles to open space. Now we're going back to sort of mix in between, because you need to balance the need for collaboration and teamwork with the need for privacy and quietness. How do you manage that in your office?
Well, we try to have different types of space for the different needs. We do have some kind of pod areas, but we don't have very high-level separations. Most of it's pretty open, but we also have offices if people need to go and have a private space as well. It's kind of just this mix. Anymore, there's such a need for collaboration, and there's a need to shift teams around. So you have to be able to assemble and disassemble teams. So for us, it's a very fluid process in our space. You don't stay in one area for very long. yet if you walk through the office, you'll see it's very personalized, and it's, like I said before, it's got a very fun energy level, and I think that's really needed in a creative environment.
So let's go a bit deeper into this topic then. For our listeners who may not know, who haven't checked your LinkedIn profile, how long have you been with FRCH?
It's going to be 18 years this year.
18 years. So you've seen a lot of things going right at the company. What, if you were to describe the FRCH culture, let's say in 3 to 4 sentences, how would you describe it?
I think probably so many people would say FRCH is a work hard and play hard culture. And the reason I say work hard is, we have world-class clients. Mm-hmm. We work for, Hilton and Disney and, some just unbelievable large clients, and can be very demanding. So the upside of that is the national and international recognition of the project work is very empowering to our staff.
Yes.
But we want them to also have fun when they're creating the project work. We think that's paramount. So, our environment has allowed us to attract high-level professionals that are very self-driven. And so we don't need a whole lot of hierarchy. It's very flexible. You feel very autonomous. A lot of freedom in decision-making, personal expression, professional development. It's a great environment. And we promote a lot from within as well.
So in a creative and design agency like FRCH, obviously the work of designers and previous work of designers when they come to the agency, or actually when they interview with the agency, is very important because you want to look at what they've done in the past. But in more general terms, in terms of recruiting, do you see that the personal brands of a candidate is very important in the process?
We do. And I'll go back to our original brand values. I mean, we look for people that are creative, obviously, but you're also looking for people that are curious, that can collaborate, that have that commitment and that care. We want them to care about the clients. We want them to care about each other. And those are kind of the things, other than, a great portfolio or great software skills. We want that, high energy passion because it's such an open culture.
What are the things that you're looking at in a candidate's personal brand?
Anything specific in their brand?
Well, are you paying attention to, so let's say the portfolio might probably be one thing, especially in your industry.
Definitely.
Are you looking at when they post on social media, do they have any thought leadership content that they post out there, their comments on Facebook or whatever it might be?
We do pay attention to some of that. I think so many of our employees, certainly as they move up, so many of them start right out of school, honestly, and then we develop those individuals, give them opportunities, and they become tomorrow's leaders. But we do like to find individuals who are thought leaders and who we believe can sell, not just do the work, but that can sell the work and interface with the clients. So good communication skills are really important. And we love it when we have people that can write. We have a blog, and we try to get as many people to contribute to that as possible. So that's always a skill that we're looking for as well.
For those who might be interested in looking at career opportunities at FRCH, what are the things that differentiate you from some of your competitors?
I think at least in the Cincinnati market, there is really not anyone quite like FRCH. We certainly have architecture firms, maybe more graphic and packaging types of firms, but you don't have too many firms that kind of work in this collaborative combination of an architect, an interior, and a graphic designer, a brand design person partnering together across disciplines. It's kind of unique. You might find a company like that in New York or, out in California. That's probably where you're going to see more firms that operate the way we do. But we're definitely unique to the area, let's say.
Okay, very untypical or non-typical for a Midwest firm.
Not typical, correct.
All right, we're getting close to the end. Typically at this point in time, I like to ask more of personal questions to our guests so that our listeners get a chance to know them a bit more intimately. What makes you laugh and why?
Oh, probably watching other people laugh, especially my kids. But probably most of all, I laugh at myself because I try not to take things too seriously.
All right. What makes you cry and why?
Honestly, I don't really cry that often. Maybe if I don't get enough sleep or, cutting an onion or something. But I actually, when I think about even the last time I kind of teared up or cried, it was really a kind act that touched me. It was like a special memory. This happened in the last couple of weeks. We had an employee who was leaving. He's going to another city, actually, and he was on his way out, and he says, I'm not leaving until I get a big bear hug. And he just literally hugged me so long. I just broke down crying. It was like, it's that emotional connection. And, it really does feel like family. It just really touched me,
A bear hug, that's a good exit interview. What's your favorite food?
Probably anything I haven't made. I'm not really a very good cook. I do love all sorts of foods, but it's kind of hard to pick one food, maybe.
You travel overseas, right?
Yes.
What's your favorite international food then? Or what's your favorite country for food that you've been to?
Oh, gosh.
You can say France. Or if you don't say France, I won't be offended.
I do love French food, actually. I can't think of a genre that I don't love. I've tried everything. In fact, I just got back from London a few days ago, and that was a great place to go and sample all different types of food. It was just a wonderful experience.
London is a great place to experience different food. Definitely, yes. I would say you eat everything except British food.
That's exactly right.
And last question: what's your favorite movie?
Gosh, again, there's so many great movies. It's hard to pick one. I really enjoy adventure and action, comedy and even animation. Actually last week, like I said, I was in London. We went to the Warner Brothers studio because I wanted to tour the Harry Potter exhibit, which is, I'd say, is one of maybe in my top 10. And it's more because of the connection with my kids growing up, reading the books and watching the movies. But I felt like such a nerd going to that to that exhibit. For the record, I was really in London to see Eric Clapton perform at Royal Albert Hall, which I just couldn't resist this side trip to go to the Warner Brothers set. It was a lot of fun. That's
awesome. Is there a way for our listeners to follow you and FRCH on social media?
Sure. We, obviously you can go to our website at frch.com, and we have a blog that's called Creative Fuel. But we also have a presence on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat. So we're out there just about every platform.
Great. Well, thank you for your time today, Donna. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for tuning in to the EX Podcast. If you want to learn more, visit our website at expodcast.com. If you want to find out more about our next conferences, go to exsummit.com. Finally, you can also find my manifesto on business to employee or B2E branding at b2ebranding.co. See you next week.